Have you ever wondered why some ancient thinkers were absolutely convinced that the soul never dies, that it lives on infinitely? Plato not only believed in this, but he also built his entire philosophy around it. Today we explore why Plato believed the soul is eternal and uncover ideas that challenge our very idea of birth and death. Is your soul more than your body? Let's dive in. Plato's belief in an eternal soul is deeply rooted in his vision of reality's dual structure: the world of eternal, unchanging forms, and the imperfect world we experience through our senses. Picture this: that sense of beauty you felt staring at a sunset. Is it just your eyes, or are you glimpsing the eternal form of beauty itself? Plato said it's the latter. And such glimpses are made possible only if our soul exists before birth to remember these forms, and survives death to return to them. This radical idea appears most powerfully in dialogues like the Phaedo, where Socrates walks toward his death and makes his final philosophical stand. He presents four powerful arguments for the soul's immortality. First, the argument from opposites. Just as hot comes from cold and day from night, Plato suggested life comes from death and death from life, an eternal cycle. If you can learn courage, you can also forget it. Life and death follow each other endlessly. If death is the end, how could life emerge? There must be a soul already existing before birth. Second, the theory of recollection. Ever feel like you already knew something deep inside? Plato claimed this was because our souls had already encountered the forms before birth. Learning is essentially remembering. He demonstrated this by guiding an uneducated slave to solve a geometry problem, showing that the knowledge was within him already, etched in the soul before birth. Third is the argument from affinity. The soul resembles the eternal, changeless, invisible realm much more than our transient, decaying body. While our flesh is subject to corrosion and transformation, our soul looks toward truth, reason, and beauty. Its affinity with the eternal implies it is itself eternal. Fourth, the argument from the form of life, sometimes called the final argument. Plato said that the soul is the principle that animates life. As long as something is alive, the soul cannot admit death within it. It keeps it living. Therefore, a soul that gives life cannot die itself. Each of these arguments guides us to a simple conclusion: the soul does not begin at birth, and it does not end in death. It must exist eternally. But why does Plato care so much about this idea? Because if the soul is immortal, every life becomes part of a larger journey. Morality matters beyond the grave. Choices here echo forever. And life is meant not merely to survive, but to purify the soul toward truth, wisdom, and the forms. In that view, philosophy isn't decoration, it's training for eternity. In the next part, we'll unpack each of these arguments in detail, see how Plato uses myth and dialogue to make them vivid, and test whether these ideas still resonate today, especially when modern science tells us the brain is everything. Is the soul real, or just a poetic metaphor? Let's find out next. Let's explore each of Plato's four arguments in more detail, starting with the argument from opposites. Plato explains that qualities come into existence from their opposites: hot from cold, awake from sleep, life from death. Life and death stand in this cyclical relationship. If life emerges from death and death from life, then death cannot be the end of life. It must be a transition. This implies that the soul must exist before life begins and continue after life ends. Without an eternal soul, the cycle breaks. Thoughts? Does that resonate with your experience of loss and rebirth? Next, the theory of recollection is perhaps one of Plato's most vivid claims. In the Meno, Socrates guides an uneducated boy to solve a complex geometry problem purely through questioning. Without teaching new information, the boy remembers the truth, suggesting that knowledge lies latent in the soul. If learning is remembering, then the soul must have existed before this life. What if your mind is not a blank slate, but a memory vessel from before? What would that mean for how we learn, teach, and grow? The argument from affinity highlights a profound metaphysical divide. The soul belongs to the world of forms, unchanging, invisible, eternal. Unlike our bodies, which decay, change, and perish, our souls desire truth, goodness, and beauty, those forms. Since the soul aligns more with the timeless world than with physical things, it makes sense that it shares that timelessness. Have you ever felt a soul-level longing for something unchanging and perfect? Plato says that longing is your soul recognizing its true home. Finally, the form of life argument in the Phaedo. Plato argues that the soul is inherently life-promoting. It animates bodies, drives motion, enables thought, and it cannot admit its own opposite. A soul that gives life cannot itself suffer death. As long as it is active, reasoning, loving, remembering, it must exist. This view challenges materialist views. If the soul is what gives life, then it cannot be produced by matter. There must be a realm beyond matter where the soul originates and persists. But there's also a compelling rhetorical and mythic dimension to Plato's defense. In the myth of air at the end of the Republic, Plato describes a cosmic journey of souls, dying, being judged, choosing new lives, and being reborn. This powerful myth isn't just a story. It illustrates moral responsibility, cosmic justice, and the soul's immortality. It reminds us that every choice matters beyond our lifespan. How would our priorities shift if we truly believed we would return? Critics often challenge these ideas. They say the pre-existence of knowledge is unscientific, that consciousness arises from the brain, not a separate soul. But Plato contends that science cannot fully explain first principles like geometry, logic, morality, and beauty. These abstract forms underpin reality itself, and the soul's contact with them suggests a source beyond physical matter. In the next and final part, we'll see how Plato's vision shapes his teachings on the moral life, how believing in an eternal soul transforms how we live, love, govern ourselves, and pursue truth. We'll ask, could Plato's vision of the soul endure through time? And what might this radical perspective offer us today? Perhaps even provide healing in a world preoccupied with the transient. Curious to continue? The final part dives into the soul's moral journey and how Plato calls us to live not just a good life, but an eternal one. Now that we've explored Plato's powerful arguments, let's look at their profound ethical and existential implications and ask, why does it matter if the soul is eternal? First, believing in an eternal soul changes our understanding of morality. If life is finite and devoid of an afterlife, ethics might become transactional, act well to feel good. But if our soul persists, every choice echoes into eternity. Plato believed that souls are judged, refined, or burdened by their deeds, as in his myth of air, where souls die, weigh their actions, and choose future lives accordingly. This idea fosters deep accountability. Our lives become moral journeys, not mere chapters. Second, this worldview shapes education. Plato's academy wasn't just a school. It was intended to nurture the soul's memory of the forms. Learning wasn't accumulation, but awakening to eternal truth. He argued that teaching geometry, music, and philosophy invites the soul to remember and align with the good. Education thus becomes a sacred practice, not just preparation for a job. Third, it transforms political philosophy. If our souls are accountable in the long run, then just governance must reflect eternal order, not the shifting views of public taste. That's part of why Plato advocated for philosopher kings, leaders who love wisdom, act justly, and rule with regard for the cosmic harmony of soul and society. Democracy or tyranny falls short unless aligned with the eternal forms of justice and truth. Fourth, it impacts our sense of purpose and resilience. Facing illness or loss, those who believe in an eternal soul may endure with hope. Suffering becomes a moment, not an identity. Death becomes a transition, not a termination. This perspective offers psychological peace and a call to life lived deeply, knowing that even pain weaves into a larger tapestry. Finally, it invites spiritual awakening. Plato claimed that in life we can glimpse the forms, truth, beauty, and goodness, and these glimpses awaken the soul through philosophy, prayer, art, and love. The soul remembers, and the process of self-examination and purification refines the soul's alignment with the eternal. That's why he famously said the unexamined life is not worth living, because the examined life remembers, connects, and becomes eternal. So what can we take away from this ancient doctrine? Embrace moral mindfulness. Treat each moment as morally meaningful, not just marionette moves in time. Prioritize inner growth. Education, reflection, and creativity aren't luxuries. They call the soul home. Seek timeless values, justice, truth, love. They outlast empires and media cycles. Liberate your perspective. If you're more than your job, your body, your status, then you can live with courage, soul-driven purpose, and deep compassion. The soul's eternity wasn't poetry for Plato. It was a call to live as if life matters forever. Ancient yet timeless. This vision challenges us to see beyond instant gratification and short-term gain, and to shape a life that echoes into infinity. Let me end with this question. What would you value differently if you believed your soul exists beyond this life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's explore this together. And if this stirred something inside you, don't forget to subscribe for more timeless wisdom. Until next time, remember, you're more than a moment. You're a soul on a journey.